Hundreds of thousands of students in England and Wales and Northern Ireland have received their A-level and vocational qualification results today after major disruption caused by the coronavirus pandemic. The cancellation of exams due to lockdown meant schools and colleges were asked to estimate grades, which were then moderated by exam boards to ensure the results were not significantly higher or lower than in previous years. In all, 78% of A-level results were A star to C, that's up 2.6% from last year, and 28% were the top grades, A star and A, up just over 2%. But there's controversy because the figures for England show that 39% of grades were marked down, while 2% went up. Those students taking vocational qualifications, such as BTECs, have been receiving estimated results in recent weeks, with the Department for Education saying those grades are broadly in line with previous years. Here's our education editor, Branwen Jeffries.
Top grades were up today, a small sweet spot to set against the many marked down. Shafaah has been rejected by all her unis. Teachers estimated 3 Bs at A-level. Every one downgraded to a C.
I've spoken to a lot of people who've all said the grades have been lowered. I just think it's really random and unfair. We don't really even know what it's been based off.
For others, relief. The grades they needed. So why not take their teacher estimates? Research suggests it would mean a huge rise in grades. That's no reflection on their hard work.
It's gone really well, to be honest. Really, really well. I've done well for myself and I'm proud.
Others wondering whether to appeal. Schools find out next week how it works, what mock evidence to submit.
I know that in the mock I got a B for biology, so I'm a bit disappointed there, but I can always appeal for that one because I could get that B if I wanted to.
Not everyone will go on to university, some heading to apprenticeships or vocational courses. But even so, being downgraded hurt.
I put in a lot of work, so I worked 8:30 till 5 pretty much every day at college. So kind of being downgraded feels a bit like a kick in the stomach.
This is a uniquely stressful and uncertain results day for them. Some will walk away with the results they hope for. But for those who've been downgraded, there's a sense of being caught up in an impersonal system. While BTEC results here were stable, almost half the A-level estimates were downgraded. Hundreds of mock results were better, so staff may advise many to appeal.
This is the coronavirus generation. This is the generation that's been impacted by changes in the GCSEs. So many different things, and the drip feed of constant regular changes in how the system might work through appeals. All of that's really added to the emotional roller coaster that they've been through.
What you wanted?
Yes, they were what I wanted.
At a state sixth form, good news for some, but top grades for private pupils have gone up more. Labour says too many students have lost out.
This has fundamentally failed. The government needs to rethink this. They shouldn't rule anything out, including the approach that was forced on the Scottish Government to go back to the assessments last week. But they need an answer. Individual appeals, waive the appeal fee, but this has been a disaster.
Where pupils are disappointed, where they feel that they could have done better, where they feel that there's an injustice being done to them, there is the possibility of appeal, and they can resit. They can take a resit this autumn as well.
Universities have been busy confirming places, but appeals based on mock results could change a lot.
The uncertainty comes from the fact that we might not know till the middle of September who is coming and who isn't, and that clearly is important for us in terms of class sizes, in particular in the new COVID environment where we're having to be very careful about that, but also in things like accommodation.
This is what many students work towards. For some, the journey here started today. For others, stressful weeks ahead. Branwen Jeffries, BBC News.
The University Admissions Service, UCAS, says the number of British students who've already accepted places is up by almost 3% on this time last year. Nearly 359,000 students have confirmed their choice of university so far, including more than 7,500 who found a place through clearing. Our education correspondent Dan Johnson has that story.
You got a name? Yes. Oh, well done. Oh,
A for achievement.
oh my gosh.
Means many students taking places as planned.
This thing should stop.
But with the agony of some of these calculated grades comes the question of what next.
I've never failed anything actually. I'm not used to not getting into places. I think that's why it hit me so hard this morning when I opened it.
Abby was one of those left disappointed.
We've all been downgraded. I hadn't got into uni because of it. I was supposed to be going to Durham, and now I can't. So I've got to look at other options. I've got to appeal, go through clearing, resit my exams, and we haven't been learning since March.
Layla also received unexpected marks.
So 1 grade above but 1 grade below, so I was like, I don't know what it means, and UCAS had crashed and no one could get on, but luckily I've just seen online that I still got in, so I'm quite thankful.
A new clearing inquiry.
Others are trying their chances through clearing, some with lower grades, some who did better looking to trade up. Here at Hull, the advice is even those appealing should be able to start their course.
It's at least a month away. There's a lot of time actually to maybe again undertake that appeals process but still start university in September. So, my advice would be still secure that place.
These are really important calls. They're big decisions, and it's all so much more complicated this year. It's much more difficult for students to work out what's best to do.
I got a U in biology.
Emily's one of those holding out for an appeal to get on her midwifery course.
The university's holding my place, and so when I appeal my grade, I'll see if I get in.
There are more clearing places this year, and they're already being accepted. Overall, university admissions are up. But after so much upheaval, some students will take a little longer to work out their next step. Dan Johnson, BBC News in Hull.
Let's talk to our political correspondent Chris Mason, who's at Westminster. Chris, this whole process, it's been traumatic for students, parents, teachers, schools and the government. What's the view from Westminster to today's events?
So in England, the results, Clive, point to the fact that 40% of grades were down on what teachers were predicting. But the government has been at pains to point out that that is normal, that most pupils in most years don't manage to hit all of their predicted grades, and they insist that moderation of the results, taking the teacher predictions, looking at the school's past performance, is absolutely crucial to be as fair as is humanly possible. And they say in constructing the model to do this, they consulted widely. They spoke to the teaching unions, for instance. But Labour say that this simply isn't fair. And they point to how well private schools have done relative to how well they did last year, their rate of improvement compared to the state sector. And in particular, they point to the fact that where there was a small number of pupils in a particular school doing a subject, there was a particular emphasis there on the teachers' predicted grades, and teachers on average have proved to be optimistic. So Labour feel that has baked in an advantage for some in the independent sector. The blunt truth here, Clive, is that this was a year where either you have the hollow relief of making your grades because the computer said yes, or the irritation that you didn't because the computer said no. We've learnt a harsh lesson this year. Exams are difficult and cruel and nerve-biting and finger-biting, but you know what? It's better than them not happening at all.
OK, Chris, thanks for that. Chris Mason there, live at Westminster.